This painting by Ernst Josephson from 1881 is called Sketch for Näcken. By calling it a sketch, Josephson makes it clear that this is not the final work, that this painting is a stage in a sequence of artworks leading presumably to an ultimate end. It is difficult to make out exactly what is going on in this image, which appears to have been painted with a palette knife and perhaps even the artist's fingers. There is clearly a human figure depicted, but unless you have seen later versions of this painting, you might not see that the figure is a water sprite, a character from Scandinavian folklore. You may not see that the Näcken is in a landscape of rocks and a cascading waterfall, that he is wearing a wreath of water plants around his head. And it may not be clear that his arms hold a violin, on which he is playing a melody that is said to have lured people to a watery death, drowning to his music. The sketch is loose, embryonic, Josephson's first unresolved ideas of the colors, movements, and energy of a future image. Josephson produced a number of subsequent versions of Näcken, including one from 1882 that appears at the Göteborg Konstmuseum, one from 1883 at Stockholm's National Museum, and perhaps the best-known version, titled Strömkaren, or The Riverman, from 1884, which is exhibited at Prince Eugen's Valdemarsudde, a 30-minute walk from here. This last painting is a highly worked image. The Näcken is painted figuratively and appears as a young man, almost adolescent, hairless, blonde, graceful, inhuman in his physical perfection. Perhaps you have seen it before. But is the Strömkaren the final act of this artistic and cultural gesture? Is it the terminus to Josephson's initial sketch? Is there an authoritative Näcken? If you do an image search for the word Näcken online, you will find hundreds of photographs of people reenacting this same scene. Men and women, young and old, all naked, except for variations on floral wreaths in their hair, playing violins, half submerged in water or sitting on rocks. The Näcken character may have existed in Swedish folklore before Ernst Josephson painted him in 1881. But it seems Josephson's specific representation of Näcken, this particular arrangement of arms and legs and violin, has been etched into the psyche and visual language of Scandinavia, and is the model with which individual expressions of this mythological character are fashioned. I believe, however, that it is this sketch from 1881 that acts as an invitation to spectators to envision diverse interpretations. The sketch's ambiguity allows each of us to fill in the details based on our own fantasies. The mental and psychic imprint of this image of Näcken, this invitation for further creation, is perhaps felt most intensely by the artist Gunilla Josephson, Ernst Josephson's first cousin, 3 times removed, who restaged the painting in an art video, also titled Näcken, in 2007. I spoke with her.
My desire to recreate Näcken in a moving image is something that slowly came to my awareness. So I contacted my cousin in Sweden and asked him if he wanted to be Näcken for me in my film, Inge Josephson. He said, yes at once. He is a very sensitive person. He has a kind and gentle soul. He's a bit older now. So we met. We went to look at Näcken at Valdemarsudde. And then we freed ourselves of the image of Näcken, because Näcken by Josephson is in my head. I could probably draw it in my sleep by now. So we went around Stockholm trying to find a waterfall, which was impossible. So we ended up having to we went to the archipelago of Stockholm, to Skarprunmarö, with the equipment, and importantly, our grandfather Gustav Josephson's violin. We were 4 people, crew of 3, and Inge as the performer, searched the island for a place that would feel like the place where Näcken would be. But there was no waterfall. So we decided to create a waterfall. We got buckets, and 2 people were standing behind Näcken and ran between the ocean and Näcken and poured water. My cousin has a mustache and is older and is very thin, very fit and very skinny, and is a very different kind of Näcken. He's the pathetic attempt to be Näcken. It would be Näcken from the painting, but he has age and he's not able to really play. He looks like he doesn't really know how to play the instrument, especially because we discovered that the pose that Näcken has in Josephson's painting is an impossible pose for playing the violin.
Like Ernst, Gunilla has produced a number of different versions of Näcken, trying out different edits of the video material, changing the colors, the duration, the narrative. It is as though she, too, senses the infinite potential of this image, and rather than making a definitive interpretation, she wishes to instead participate in the endless range of possibilities that unfold from her ancestor's sketch.
I resist the notion of a finished version. I want to keep it open, which ties me emotionally into my own history, family history, and it's not a product. It's as if it's not quite real, in the same way that Näcken as a painting was not quite real to me either, until I stood in front of it with my mother and saw it. Having heard so much about it was almost painful. I think in my own mind, my video of Näcken is more than art. It's very personal. It's related to maybe, the strong alliance I have with Ernst. It's that bond.
Josephson's sketch entered the collection in the 1980s, long after Thiel had died. The frame has a floral motif and a sharp three-dimensionality that seems to contain the wet, sensual abstraction of Josephson's paint. At the top of the frame, you may notice a flat surface with rough markings carved into the wood. It appears to be some kind of musical notation, as if to indicate the music of the Näcken's violin, almost as abstractly and ambiguously as the form of his body and the landscape that surrounds him. Gunilla Josephson's video, like Ernst Josephson's sketch, is mute, but it is an image filled with sound. The sound of a river moving, the sound of a waterfall rushing across rocks, and the sound of Näcken's violin. What is he playing? Is it a song meant to hypnotize his soon-to-be-drowned victims? Is it a line of poetry written by Ernest Thiel? Ti, du kom med ungdom och kvar i hågen. You came with youth and spring in your mind, which Hugo Alfvén indicated should be sung con passione grandissima. I asked Gunilla to imagine what song might be coming from Näcken's violin.